Hey, in this video I want to show you a trick for adding authority, mass, low end, weight to your kick drum, even if the waveform itself doesn't have it or if it's not responding well to EQ. Low end is so important to a mix, in my opinion. I love to feel the low end. I love to feel the elements of the low end. I don't really want them beating me down with level and hearing them as much as I just like feeling them sitting there. It's a really great foundation for a mix for all the other things to happen on top of. So it's real critical to get a nice balance. And sometimes, like in this situation, you have a kick drum that's nice and defined, but it's not particularly, I like a certain amount of bloom, for lack of a better word, on the bass drum. I like it to kind of have a sense of space. And the drums in this song were recorded in a room that was very, very live. It was a very large and live room. In fact, there's no reverb actually on this mix at all. Everything that you're about to hear is actual true ambience in the room done through the room mics. And so when you have a really defined kick drum and a really ambient overall sort of vibe, which is what I was going for, sometimes it helps to not only add mass and definition to the kick, which is what I'm doing, but I'm also going to kind of add a little bit of a bloom or a little bit of a air or space around the kick that makes it sort of fit the overall mix too. And the processing I did originally wasn't really working with the actual kick files themselves to get quite the comprehensive picture I wanted. The kick still felt a little too defined. So I decided to do this instead. I'll just play this song for you. You can kind of get a feel for how the drums fit with the rest of the mix. And I'll mute what I've done and unmute and mute and unmute. So you can kind of hear the impact that it has on the overall mix. So here we go. With it out. Take it out again. So you can hear the bass drum. Because the inside mics and the outside mic, the drum's it doesn't have a lot of sustain or bloom to it. It's padded, it's got some muffling inside, and the heads aren't really resonating. This is the outside mic, which I like. Generally, it sounds pretty natural, but anyway, so what I've done with this is I have created an auxiliary track, and I have inserted on that track a 60 cycle sine wave. And you can't hear it because I've got a noise gate on it, but I'll turn the noise gate off, and there it is. It sounds like I've got a hum in the system. I've got something. I guess it is a hum. It's a 60 cycle sine wave. So I've used the plug-in here, the gate, to kill it as much as this will allow, 80 dB, which is sufficient. I'm not worried about more than that. Some people might want more. You can use a different plug-in, or you can stack plug-ins, however you want to do that. And what I've done is I've taken this noise gate and I've triggered it off of the internal kick mic. So I've got a send off of the inside kick microphone here, pre-fader send. I just, generally for this type of sidechain application, I choose -6. It's just my normal kind of starting point. So this is sending to the noise gate. So the gate's opening up for it. So anyway, these are the three mics together, or the three sources together. And again, if you mute this. So what I've literally done is I'm adding 60 cycle sine wave to this thing. And the time constants are pretty critical too. Getting the right release. The attack is as fast as it goes on this particular application. Hold 23 milliseconds. This just kind of felt right for the song. It's going to change from song to song, but basically mess with the time constants to get the blend that you want. And then on top of that, a sine wave is just a sine wave. It's one frequency, which is a little bit weird, can be a little bit weird. And so I wanted to make it more interesting, so I added Renaissance bass, which gives it more. I will actually solo safe this and play it. So the Renaissance bass is actually adding some harmonic to it. That's just the sine wave. And that's with Renaissance bass. and also IR1. So I've got a convolution reverb here. It's a small studio room, something or another. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's a small thing that I often rely on just to add a sense of space to things. This is kind of cool, and this is what sort of adds the bit of bloom or the bit of space or ambience to the track. Normally a 60 cycle sine wave with reverb on it's just going to be a mess. It's going to muddy up your mix and it's going to be awful. I have a pretty low, this is inserted, it's not something that's added, but the wet dry mix is pretty low, as you can see. To explain why the reverb works, I'm going to go back and show you the settings that I used on the noise gate. So here it is. Do you hear that sort of attack? There's like a little tick, 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 tick. Right? That's a 60 cycle sine wave. Why is it ticking? Well, because I've got the fastest possible attack on this thing, 10 microseconds. So what's happening is that sine wave, you got the peaks and the valleys and the peaks and the valleys, and they cross the zero, the point. And what'll happen is it's in the middle of the rotation somewhere, but not at the 0 point when that gate opens instantly. And so that's the sound, that's an anomaly that's created when all of a sudden, in the middle of some measurable amplitude, the sound's passing all of a sudden, as opposed to taking off from the 0 point, which you wouldn't hear that normally. And to show you what I mean a little further, I'll demonstrate getting rid of it by slowing the attack. See how that tick goes away? And that's only a 1 millisecond attack, but that's slow enough to ramp up so you don't really hear. But you get that tick otherwise. That tick adds a skosh of attack for what it's worth. May or may not be useful depending upon your track. But what it does do is it actually makes the reverb here a little bit more noticeable, because that tick now is kind of getting reverberated. So it's more noticeable, the ambience that I put on it. And the ambience, it's not something like you go, oh, listen to the reverb on that bass drum. No, but what it does do is it tends to, and I'll bypass the reverb just to show you. It's a subtle effect. These are kind of subtle things here. If you don't hear it straight off the bat, I'm messing with you. No, if you don't hear it straight off the track, straight off the bat, it's not a real concern. But over time, I've just sort of begun to notice these things. But let me just play it and I'll show you. Bypassing the reverb, see if you can kind of tell a difference. Bypass it. Put it back in. Bypass it again. Back in. So it's a subtle thing. But what I'm noticing is that when it's bypassed, the drum is a little bit more tight and focused, which can be really, really desirable. But I want a little bit more of an ambient blend with the rest of the drums, which are pretty ambient. I mean, listen to the drums, they're ambient. And that's all natural ambience from the room that those were recorded in. That's it. I hope that's useful to you. It's a neat trick. It's bailed me out a lot when I haven't quite been able to pull out of the actual audio files what I've wanted to with EQ and things like that. Having something that's entirely separate from the file that you can sort of add without messing with the files themselves, the original sound itself, is sometimes really, really helpful. So I hope you're able to use that. Hope it's effective. If you like this kind of stuff, everything that I do is about either drums, recording drums, mixing drums, or just mixing in general too. But if that stuff is interesting to you and you like this video, please share, please subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel, and I appreciate your watching this, and I hope to see you next time.